Very quickly that I wasn't going to ask.
Yeah, it's on. Don't worry.
That I wasn't going to ask a question, but I feel that there are a couple of points that I want to address very quickly. The first point I wanted to address before I get onto the Tommy issue is the point that the chap just brought up about Robert Mugabe. Now, I'm not here to defend or support Robert Mugabe, but you cannot speak about Robert Mugabe without first understanding Lord Carrington's Lancaster House Agreement, which the British deliberately reneged on in terms of land, money, redistribution, and everything else. They understood when Robert Mugabe and Joshua Nkomo decided to come together and take on Ian Smith in what was then called Rhodesia, a racist apartheid state. At that particular time, I don't believe that Robert Mugabe, as far as I understand,
he was Sir Robert Mugabe before that.
He wasn't a Marxist at the time. So it's not a yes and no question. You cannot speak about Robert Mugabe without first speaking about the Lancaster House Agreement, which was broken. The second point, because this isn't part of what we were meant to be discussing, but I just felt that he needed to be corrected from a historical perspective on that point. The second point is this: the rant that Tommy has made. Now, I didn't hear the interview with Tommy and yourself, and I quite deliberately I said I'd prefer to wait for the video.
Right. Okay.
And but there's a point that I wanted to make about the rant that Tommy had made. From my understanding, there were lots of people who were quite ambivalent towards Tommy, who now have hardened views because of the rant and how the rant came out. Now, there were quite specific things in that rant that pertained to race, pertained to what I perceived to be prejudice, and what pertained to real anger. Now, it's interesting that Tommy felt that, and he has a right. He has a right to feel that. However, there is a situation that's occurring in this country at the moment, which many people are either blind to, they don't want to see, or they're just completely ignoring it. It's not just enough to say that the incident that occurred with George Floyd and George Floyd dying, and then, for example, Tommy's going to throw out statistics about people who are dying in custody. This is a false equivocation, and I'm going to tell you why.
Go for it, big bro.
When, for example, I can go around to my recently departed mother's house on the Myattsfield estate, for example, and I can see police officers having 20 or 25 black youngsters on the floor, lying on the floor whilst they're walking past them. Not because they've committed an act. If they've committed an act, then find the individual and arrest them. I then drive around the corner onto Vassal Road, and then I then see police officers having another 12 or 13 black youngsters. This is a daily occurrence for black youngsters in this society. It's been happening from the time that I've been young. So whilst many people want to concentrate on the George Floyd issue, there is another issue that's taken place, and that's the constant disrespect of black youngsters in this country. It's not enough for people to say right now that white lives matter, because that has never been argued, that white lives matter. Nobody has ever said that white lives matter. But as you said earlier on, there seems to be a problem with what I perceive to be systematic racism in this country. And then if you are black and then you speak about it, then you have the proverbial chip on your shoulder. I think, and I've told Tommy to his face, that what I thought that he did was completely wrong. And what he did, it was almost like tossing petrol onto a fire. And some of the conversations that have taken place in this country since that rant have been quite disturbing. There are people now who are not speaking to other people. There are people who are in constant internecine warfare with other people. And this country has taken a turn very much for the worse. And I'm not quite certain that this can be mended. It's the truth. I'm not quite certain that it can be mended.
May take time.
When the soldier was speaking, when Gary was speaking earlier, Gary made a point. He said that he has served in war theatres across the world, but even he, who has seen those kinds of incidences, and I've spoken to him whereby they've seen IED explosions, and they've had to go back to where those IED explosions were and scrape their friends out of those cars because they're dead. He has the intelligence, yeah, as an ex-member of the military, of the military special forces, to still come back and make a statement and say, look, those people who were committing those acts, they represented a tiny, minuscule minority. In the first instance, and I'm sorry, I'm going against what I said about making a statement, but please apologize. I apologize.
You're all right, big bro. You're all right. You could do it.
The point that I was making is that he's intelligent enough to understand, even though he may feel that there is a problem with people burning a flag, an inanimate object, yeah, as opposed to looking
living
at what is happening to real live living human beings
yeah,
in this country every day. Forget America for a moment. This is happening to black youngsters every day. And so I asked myself, how can this be improved? How can it be improved? Because we cannot carry on the way in which we're carrying on. I think the last point that I want to make is this. When people speak about Black Lives Matter, there's a counter-argument going on here, and much of it is counterproductive. For example, if you say, earlier on you said, if I can remember correctly, that Black Lives Matter is an excellent marketing slogan.
Yeah.
And it's true. If somebody says, does Black Lives matter? Well,
yeah, of course they do. Yeah,
of course it does. Tremendous marketing strategy that Black Lives Matter. However, it is disingenuous, yeah, it's completely disingenuous to turn the situation with Black Lives Matter, which is a separate organization, and not mention what is really happening to black people on a daily basis. Does Black Lives Matter represent me? The answer is no. I've made clear, and we've made clear that I do not support a queer affirming network. I do not support an organization that tells me that black issues, are narrow nationalism. I do not support an organization that says that the patriarchy isn't important when 73% of the families in my community, do you understand, are represented solely by women. That is not what is good for us. The point that is important, though, that I cannot get away from, is simply this. Much of what is being said about, the back and forth, which has been going on, and the stats, and so on and so forth, for me, is nonsensical. Because when people listen to this video, and when the youngsters who are around me and who I listen to every single day, they're going to come back and they're going to say to me, well, that conversation was all right, but how does it affect me? Who spoke up for me? Who spoke up for me? Because there is a systematic, no matter whether Tommy or anybody else wishes to brush over it, there is a systematic racism which takes place every day, and I will go back to this, where black youngsters are concerned. So when black youngsters hear a rant, and then they say, well, hold on a second, this guy's talking about X, Y, Z, well, we're going to go down there, we're going to lick off some heads. Yeah, because that's the internal anger that they have, and an anger at a system that does not treat them right. It doesn't treat them right. But still, I would say to everybody this, a famous politician once said, jaw is better than war. My experience is that the only people who want to speak about war are people who have never ever been involved in war.
That's correct.
And this is the reason why these debates are very, very important. So on that basis, I'll salute you, and I'll even salute Tommy for turning up to answer the difficult questions.
So the first statement is just, I wanted to touch on something that it was briefly mentioned, but not drilled down upon or detail, and that is black racism. I follow as a basic rule, dictionary definitions, not sort of neo-Marxist redefinitions. So it's quite interesting that you use the neo-Marxist redefinition of racism, which is power plus privilege.
Neo-Marxist, who is from, my definition comes from people like Neely Fuller and Francis Cress Welsing. They don't necessarily come from Marxist organizations, so.
Yeah, when I say neo-Marxist, I mean based on the core Marxist principle and power dynamic of the oppressor versus the oppressed. So from what I've seen of you, you generally regard yourself as in the oppressed class. So in terms of black racism anyway, as someone that is black and obviously raised in a black family, in black areas, Handsworth Wood in Birmingham. I lived in London for a time, used to spend some of the summers down in Wandsworth with some of my family that were over there. So yeah, black racism is a thing. I think many black people, I don't have proportions, but many black people are racist towards whites. I think the claim that blacks cannot be racist towards any other racial group or specifically whites in England, I think that's nonsense, to be honest. And in terms of my question, as a black nationalist, would you not prefer to locate yourself in a majority black country instead of a majority white country?
Calm down, people. Calm down.
That's my question.
Calm down. Yeah, calm down. Black nationalism. Black people occupy many different countries around the globe. Yeah, it is my view that black people, no matter where they are, need to lift themselves up off the bottom of the socio-economic ladder, no matter where you are. There are black people in Brazil. There are black people in Nigeria. There are black people in Europe. There are black people over here. So me being a black nationalist doesn't mean I'm supposed to go to Africa or I'm supposed to go to Jamaica. My nationalism means wherever you find, one of the tenets is wherever you find yourself, build yourself. Okay, wherever we find ourselves, we should build ourselves there. And so, but it is my definite plan to be in Africa very soon, as a matter of fact. However, I'm making very good use. It will be part-time. I'm a British national.
Where you going? Just I'm curious.
I ain't telling you.
I ain't telling you. What do you think I'm coming over there?
I ain't telling
I'm just
you.
curious.
No, I'm going. But I've got a British passport, so I'm actually fortunate enough to have a British passport, and I can move quite freely around the world. So I've got to take advantage of that. I find it interesting. I find this interesting also. I'm a study of history, right? And when you study the Greek civilization, the Greeks were educated in Africa. They were educated along the Nile, in and along the Nile Valley. What the Greeks did is that they went to Africa, to the universities in Africa, and they stayed there for a long time. And they actually educated themselves, and then they went back to Greece and made Greece great. And I don't see why black people can't do the exact same thing while they're here. So you understand that you're black, and you use this system, and you do what you can. You get what you can out of this system, and you build yourself up. And I don't see the problem with that. I don't see because what it basically sounds like to me is that why don't you back off back to where you come from? That's what it sounds to me, is what you're saying, basically. That's basically what it sounds to me, but a little bit more articulate, basically.
I find a lot of what you say a distraction. So what I want to do is just try and get an understanding of you rather than just make a judgment on videos based on some of the comments you were making with Sarah. So the first one is, every time Sarah mentioned Black death, Black exploitation, oppression, you felt the need to counter it with, what about white people? Considering the fact that we've seen these murders and we've seen this oppression live and direct, and you say you're not a racist and you care about black people so much, you've given a lot of heartfelt testimony today about how much you're in support of black people. Do you not think the compassionate thing to do in that situation is say, do you know what, yeah, that is wrong? And just stop there.
I did
Why do you feel the need?
I did do that.
Why do you feel the need to counter every time a mention of a black death is made with, well, what about white people?
I didn't feel the need to counter it, and I sat and didn't open my mouth on Black Lives Matter for weeks.
Sorry, I'm just talking about this interview, and I don't get as much screen time and mic
talk
time
about
as
this.
you do. So I'm gonna try and ask direct questions, hopefully get really direct answers. So every time he mentioned, a black death or a black situation that we're unhappy with,
Yep.
Why did you counter it with, what about white people?
We're here to debate on an issue, I believe I'm here to put across a side to the British public, which I think are frustrated. And I think that as frustrated as the black community are with what's happening to them, the members of the white community
statement
are frustrated.
We are unhappy about a murder that we've seen. Let's just take George Floyd as one. We can forget about everything else. When that gets mentioned, why do you need to counter that with what about white people? As somebody that
did I counter that?
Yes.
What did I say?
Every single time you said, what about white people? What about white girls that are getting raped and murdered? When we were just talking about an incident. And we're having a conversation about
we were talking about why black community are feeling aggrieved, why the black community are feeling angry.
Exactly. So we're talking about why we aggrieved. As somebody who is a non-racist, who's a non-bigot, who's compassionate and very supportive of the black community, why do you feel the need to counter that every single time?
Because we're here to discuss on either side why people are angry.
I would put it to you that I think you don't care, but that's just my opinion, because I feel like, again, you can't answer that question. Everybody here heard every time you countered with, well, what about white people? Okay? Just again, from my understanding.
I counted with statistics and numbers.
I wasn't asking about statistics.
No, but we need to.
We're talking about a death. This is an evil act that has happened.
Yep.
And you say your response.
Yep.
Appears as if, well, you've got nothing to complain about because white people get murdered all the time. So
no. My response is that
I'm just going to go into my
I see a hell of a lot of emotion.
I don't get as much screen time and as much mic time as you, so I'm going to try and get as many questions in as I can. You said, now everything's about race. Do you feel like race relations in the UK, particularly with black people, were all sweet before, George Floyd and these black...
Between whites and blacks in general in the country, yeah, I did.
Do you think that race relations were good?
Yeah.
Even though you said you've been fighting racism for 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The next thing is, you mentioned about Black Pound Day and there was an issue around that. There's a rhetoric and there's this stigma around black people and having chips on my shoulder sometimes, expecting a handout and things like that. So I just wanted to ask you, just again, if you could give me a really short and sweet answer. Do you think white society owes black people, African people a debt for empire and for what they're perpetuating today in terms of exploiting African countries and even Caribbean ones? Do you think white society owes...
White society?
Yes.
White society as in every white person?
Do you think white society owes...
Well, when you say white society, what do you mean? What do you mean? Every white person?
Yes.
Do you think I owe a debt? No.
I've asked you a question.
No, I don't know.
You don't think...
I don't feel like I owe a debt.
So
do I feel there's a historical...
So me asking you, me asking white society and saying, you should...
Do I talk for white society?
You should pay a reparation to us for the debts of empire.
Who's going to pay reparation for my family?
I'm just going to ask this really succinct question. When I say you should pay us a reparation, you should give us what we're due for what you've stolen from our countries and things like that, do you think that should happen? Yes or no?
But because of...
Including yourself, white society. So
white society?
You in that.
My family were enslaved as Irish.
No?
Who's going to... No.
Okay. So then when things like Black Pound Day happen and we say, okay, I'll humour you and say you don't owe us a debt, you don't owe us any reparations. What we're going to do...
Do you think I do?
Yes.
You think I owe you debt?
Yes, I do. So what I'm going to say...
You think I should give you money? Because...
If I'm just going to finish this last point, just so I can understand your psychology around it.
Yep.
So we'll humour that point and say you don't owe us reparations. We're not going to get any sort of handouts from white society. What we're going to do is did you say you've got Irish ancestry?
My family's Irish.
So like the Irish, like Indians, Asians, like Jews, what we're going to do is do it for ourselves and create things like Black Pound Day, create business for ourselves, and we're going to do that ourselves. Do you have a problem with us doing that ourselves? Saying we're going to have Black Pound Day. I don't have
a problem. I'm just literally telling you the reaction to it.
So I'm asking you,
it's
do
not
you
working.
have a problem with us having things like Black Pound Day?
It's not working for who, Tommy?
It's not working for race relations or for your community. And you can see that by the comments.
So
how do you know it's not working for our community?
Because it's just going to cause a divide.
So what I'm asking
total divide. That's what I believe. I don't care if you want to have Black Pound Day every day of the week.
So there's a divide if I ask you for money. There's a divide if I ask white society for money. And there's a divide if I don't ask white society for money and say we're going to do this for ourselves.
I'm just telling you the uncomfortable truth.
I really just want to understand that really.
And I'll tell you. Let me tell you.
Like I said.
Let him answer.
Let me answer. You've asked me. But you've asked me 5 questions. Let me answer.
Let him answer now. Let him answer.
I need to answer now.
So when we ask for a handout and say we want reparations is an issue, and when we say we're going to do it for ourselves is an issue. Yeah. There is.
If you want to have Black Pound Day 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you have it. I'm simply telling you that the reaction to it is not positive for your community. I don't believe.
So what is a positive reaction?
By who?
By the general public. And I've gone on, as I said, it's a not. There's a 90. I'm telling. Read. There's a 93% negative reaction to it online. Yeah?
By whom, Tommy? This is what I'm trying to say. By whom?
By the public who are.
So what you're saying is, okay, cool. Sorry. So I really just want to understand because like I said, I would rather ask you than make assumptions from your videos and stuff. You think it's a negative, because you did actually say in the interview that we're going the wrong way about it. In those words, there or thereabouts, by trying to do things like Black Pound Day and do things for ourselves and not ask for handouts. But then there's also an issue if I turn around and say white society owes a debt.
Oh.
So what I'm going to ask you is,
Cool.
if asking for help is an issue and doing for self is an issue, what would you prefer we do?
What? So, on the first one, on the first point, why would I owe you anything? Me, personally. You said
no, I'm not here to answer.
But you just said I do. You just said I owe you. I should give you money.
I think because of the history of empire and what is continue to be perpetuated.
The British Empire. But my family come from Ireland.
Okay.
So tell me again why I should give you anything.
So,
I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to understand how.
As we've spoken today,
I would never sit in. I would never sit in front of someone who has nothing to do with anything.
Even as an Irish person.
Do you not think you can succeed without
handouts?
handouts?
You asked me a question and I gave you the opportunity to answer.
Do you not think you can succeed without
handouts? I
handouts?
don't want to answer questions. I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
Even as an Irish person.
So because of British Empire.
I'm not going to get an opportunity.
Go on.
To
Yeah,
answer.
go on.
Okay, cool. Even as a white Irish person, British people have more of an affinity with you and more of a respect for you and will allow you to advance in their societies more than they will do as a black African
No blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
There's a reason why it was in that order. Okay, so you've just proved my point. Blacks, dogs, Irish. So that's why I'm asking: is there a benefit? Has white society benefited, and do they owe a debt? That's why I said white society.
No, you said me. I asked you if you mean me.
You asked me because you wanted to know. So you're a white Irish individual, and I said white society. I didn't make any bones about it. So you've asked me my question. That question, I've answered that. So that's why.
I think that's mad.
Okay, fair enough. And like I said, I wanted to.
I think it's insane, bro.
I wanted to understand your psychology.
Yeah.
Not to make a judgment. I just wanted to understand.
Yeah.
All right.
When it comes
guys.
to Black Pound Day, if black
we
businesses-
shouldn't ask for help, but we shouldn't help ourselves. That's what you're saying.
All right. Thank you.
Irrelevant, bro.
Listen, I just want to thank everyone for coming down. Tommy, thank you. Audience, thank you. And everyone, I thank you for watching. I believe these uncomfortable conversations are actually needed to kind of move things forward, to try and heal, and to try and come to some sense of understanding amongst everyone. So for everyone that is watching, can you please donate to the Black Opinion PayPal? We will put the link in the description. We'll put it at the bottom of the screen. If you want us to bring this content to you, more so, we want to expand on this, and we may need your donation. So thank you everyone for watching. Peace, family. Peace.